Welcome everyone to our World Reimagined social care series. This is the 7th in our series and delighted to be here. We've been having some amazing conversations with you all, with people in the sector, with carers, with people who use services and all our partners across third and statutory services. So you're all very welcome. I'm Sheena Arthur. I am Partnership Manager at Glasgow Council for the voluntary sector. And here just to welcome you all. We're using Zoom, we're recording so that we can share the nuggets of discussion on social media. Please do feel free to have your camera off if you prefer. And we're using the chat functions, the little icon at the bottom of your screen. So please thank you those that are already introducing themselves. But if you'd like to comment or ask questions, please do. And please be patient if technology takes time. You're probably familiar with this. We've got a great session today looking at intergenerational work and chaired by Pennie Taylor, who we're delighted is here. Pennie's a freelance journalist and broadcaster and with a passion for health and social care, which you will know if you've been at any of our conversations already. So thank you, Pennie, and I'm going to hand over for you to chair.
No, it's my great pleasure, and thank you very much, and welcome everyone. We've got a fantastic range of speakers here, some of whom are up on the bonny black aisle. You'll meet them later. How about you tell us, share where you're joining us from on the chat function. You open that up by scrolling down, as Sheena said, to the bottom of your screen, and you'll see a chat icon there. Click on that and it opens up a box. We really want your contribution, your questions, your comments, you know, any links you want to share, because these sessions are informing the GCVS response to the National Care Service consultation, which, as you will well know, is underway. I think it closes today, actually, or tomorrow, anyway, sometime real soon. This conversation is going to be focusing on intergenerational work. And to set the scene, I'd very much like to introduce the Chief Executive of Generations Working Together, Alison Clyde. Welcome, Alison.
Hi, everybody. It's very exciting to be here. Thank you. Okay, so yes, I'm Alison Clyde from Generations Working Together. Just to give you a little bit of background on what intergenerational work is, I think I recognise quite a lot of people on the call today, so that's fantastic. But where does it fit within the health and social care agenda that we're going to be talking about? So we know that intergenerational work has benefits for everybody that's involved. If you're new to intergenerational work, it's about bringing people together from different generations. So that could be younger generations and older generations, which is what we've seen historically. But nowadays, it has a much more open call. So we can see people from different generation groups coming together, but it doesn't have to be under 25s and over 50s. It can be a wider range. There is massive benefit to intergenerational work. So intergenerational work is about bringing people together in purposeful, mutually beneficial activities that's going to have a benefit for everybody involved. So that's the younger person, the older person, but also the ages in between, the staff members, the volunteers, the organisations and the family members involved as well. So it's beneficial for everybody. Pennie, do you want me to keep going, or are you? Yes, I'm okay to keep going. So Generations Working Together, we're the National Centre for Intergenerational Work. We've been around since 2007. We have 18 local intergenerational networks for anybody to join. Our membership is free. We have about 3,500 members across Scotland, and we have an international membership as well. We have the local networks, so there's 18 in Scotland, and we also have 3 new thematic networks this year, which look at ageism, looks at intergenerational housing, how we look at places and spaces, and Also, the last one is around research, where we're trying to pull academia together for people on the ground to be able to interact with that and to be able to share resources and get involved in academic research as well. We host an annual conference, which next year is going to be between the 7th and the 11th of March, and we'll maybe Pennie will maybe talk about the intergenerational week next year in April as well. But where does it fit, and how does it fit with health and social care? I think humans look for, there's a natural part of us that want connectedness, and I think over this pandemic we've seen a shift and a breakup of relationships, and people haven't been able to build those relationships in the way that we would normally do. And I think it's really critical that intergenerational work is really embedded within our new National Care Service, however that's going to look like, because it is so beneficial and beneficial for everybody. And there's ways, when we look at the Derek Feely report, they talk about community-based services, and I think intergenerational work fits with that. But it's about all stages of life, so it's not just one particular area. It could be from a very early age, from being unborn to be early years, to be primary, secondary school, to get involved, for young adults, young professionals, and people in the middle of our life stages, and then as we grow older and into retirement as well. So it's really, really important for all stages of life to be connected. And I think over the past 18 months, we've seen isolation, we've seen depression, not just for older people, not just for older people in care homes, but also for younger people and people living at home and trying to manage with the lockdown. So we've seen a huge increase in depression rates. We've seen isolation, we've seen anxiety. Now we come out of the lockdown, it's completely different. Intergenerational work halted, as many of you will have known, because it's been really difficult. But we've seen people have been very brave and very bold and look at connecting through post, through telephone calls, through writing campaigns, through video games, doing it online. So there's loads of different ways that we can continue to connect. And it's really important, I think, as well, to think about intergenerational work through partnerships, through how we can help through volunteering as well. Pennie, am I okay for time?
Yeah, absolutely okay. If you've got more you want to say, keep going, and then we get into a short bit of discussion. Yeah, keep going.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you. So yeah, so I think it is a critical part, and I think there's a few things about intergenerational work that is really key that fits with this report. And I think staff development is a key, and partnership working is a key, and the community work is another key element of this work. For intergenerational work to have a real impact, we can see that intergenerational work can reduce isolation and loneliness. It improves mental health and well-being. It can improve physical activity. And this is not just for older people, it's for younger, it's for everybody that's involved in these projects. We can see that it raises self-esteem. It builds confidence, it builds communication skills between younger and older people. It can improve reading and writing skills, and that's not just for younger people, that could be for older people as well. There is so many things we can share skills. Our younger and older generations across Scotland have got masses of resources and skills and life experience that we could be sharing, and that could be really meaningful for each other. So that there's lots of benefits in those. But for good intergenerational practice, we need to work in partnership. So we need to develop partnerships. It shouldn't just be one person that's running an intergenerational projects. And the beauty, I think, how it fits in with this care is that intergenerational work is creating partnerships between different organisations that wouldn't normally ever meet. We've got schools involved, early years involved, we've got care homes involved, community groups, older people's groups. We've got Gary Brown here from the Learning Network, from young people in care. It just opens the door. And I think a partnership has to be strong, it has to be connected, and you have to be able to split those responsibilities within a partnership. We also need to develop people's knowledge and our confidence around intergenerational work. That is so key, to be able to understand what it is we're doing, that it's not just a service to the opposite age group that we're working with, but it's actually reciprocal. And it's about making those bonds as well. And I think when true intergenerational work is successful, we can see very strong partnerships. We can see really great understanding between the partners and between the participants about why we're being here as well.
That's really fantastic, Alison. Thank you for that. Before we open it up to wider discussion, let me just say that the consultation on the National Care Service appears to have been extended to the 2nd of November. There's a link in the chat there if you want to click on it, if it's gone to the bottom of your to-do list. Yeah, there's an opportunity. Thank you very much. I mean, it's instinctively right, isn't it? You know, you talked about the benefits there: mental health, loneliness, connection, all those wonderful things. But you've also said that, you know, one of the areas of activity is about research. Can you prove impact?
Yes, we can prove impact. And I think evaluation is such a difficult thing for our projects to do, because they're out there, they're doing the work, they know it's successful because they see it day to day. We are seeing a lot more academia within Scotland that are interested in doing intergenerational projects and looking at the evidence. We're currently doing a review just now for the World Health Organization around how intergenerational work can contribute to reducing ageism. So that's a big piece of work. But we've also got digital connectivity projects that are running with Stirling University. So we do have evidence. There is a lot of evidence, but Penny, it can be so difficult to find that evidence for grassroots people.
Because that was one of the issues that was raised in the Feely report, made specific reference, I think, to the fact that there really was very little known actually about what happens out in the third sector, the voluntary sector. And it occurs to me that this is an area that, as you say, really needs to be researched, not evaluated necessarily, because you don't want to tie everybody up in red tape. But you talked about you know, how many different groups are doing it, and the desire to share learning and share best practice. You know, how is that possible? And are there toolkits for things like, for instance, how do you build the partnerships you've just described, and learning from on the ground that we're going to be hearing about in a moment?
Yeah, there is so much information on our website. If you come onto our website, if you're not a member, please do join, because it is free. But there is lots of toolkits about how to do intergenerational work. We've developed 5 training courses, which are just introductory training courses. They're 2.5 to 3 hours. They're free for anybody to come and get involved. There's one on just a general introduction about what is intergenerational work.
Yeah.
There's another one that takes you through how to plan intergenerational projects, and another one that's been written about how to measure your intergenerational projects as well.
That sounds fantastic. And will you carry on developing those as experience is gained, and, you know, in the new world that we might be in that we will be in?
Yes, we will do, and we have a 1-day course. We also have an 8-week online course. But I think what is really interesting is that we've had calls from people to say, when are we coming back to face-to-face? And that is something that we didn't expect. And we're going to trial a training session in November for those people who prefer to come. It will be spaced out. There will be plenty of room. We will be able to look at that. But that is a really interesting development. Also, I should also say is that the local networks are not meeting face-to-face at the moment because of the pandemic, but we are doing thematic networks. So we have a calendar of events that you can go and you can have a look, and we have a whole range of topics that we might not normally cover that people can come and get involved in. So please do come and have a look at that. That is for anybody that can get involved. And we're constantly sharing, not just from us, but from our memberships and the people that's involved in those meetings as well.
Now, in the new world that we're entering now, post-pandemic, with all everything that's associated with that. You know, we had Paul Gray, former Chief Executive of NHS Scotland, recently saying the value of the third sector in health and social care, it's treated as a junior partner and has been disrespected. Is there a danger that this kind of intergenerational work could be seen as nice to do and therefore not essential and not kind of frontline? How do you convince whoever is going to be the new funder, whether it's councils or central government or perhaps very much more local? Yeah. How do you convince them that this matters?
That's a huge challenge, and I think COVID has shown us that there's a lot of establishments, should I say, that we're doing intergenerational work where we're doing it because it was a nice thing to do, that it wasn't essential. And that's something that we're trying to change, that narrative, that this is something that should be embedded into everyday life. It shouldn't just be put into a specific time of the week or with a specific group. Intergenerational work has so many different themes. Yeah. Education is a big one. And I think, Pennie, the two projects that you're going to be introducing are going to be examples question, because they're showing why this is an essential thing for us to do. We must have this within our day-to-day lives.
Okay, well, that's a really nice cue for me to introduce. First off, we'll hear from Jackie Bell from JB's Nursery in Dumfries, I think. Jackie, is that right? Yeah. And we'll come to you in one moment. And after that, we're going to go up to the Black Isle to Fortrose. You can't do that face to face. To the Intergenerational Community Partnership, and Wanda Mackay and Fraser Thompson. So welcome to you all. But let's start, Jackie Bell, with the JB's Nursery story. What is your intergenerational project?
My intergenerational project at the moment is working with a lady that has early onset dementia. What I was trying to do was to do something different. I was trying to start off granny bees and encourage elderly people in the village to come in and enjoy the children. But the people of that age that are fit and healthy are actually away out for lunch, bowling, playing golf, and are very busy. So what happened to me was I was in the supermarket rushing around and noticed this lady nearly in every aisle opposite me, and then behind me at the cash desk, and she had nothing in her basket, and she was trying to chat to me, and I had had a very busy day and needed to get home. And on the way back in the car, I thought, you could have given her 10 minutes of your time. I felt upset that I had kind of rushed through and just said hi and kept going. We live in quite a small village, so it wasn't very difficult to find out who she was and speak to her family. And I wondered, because children don't mind how often you ask them the same question. They're just happy that someone's chatting to them. They'll love it. So we did a lot of things with Heather's family before we suggested to Heather she would maybe like to come. She's quite a feisty character, you know, she's got a lot of personality and a lot of stuff to say. So Heather volunteers 3 times a week. It started with her daughter bringing her to the nursery. Now she gets the bus. So she comes one stop on the way here and one stop on the way back, so she knows to get off. But we also have risk assessments in place so that if she doesn't arrive, our daughter will always take my phone call. She'll always look for that text to say, Mum's here and Mum's back on the bus. So there's a lot goes on behind the scenes, but stripping that back, Heather comes in, she spends time with the children, she's happy to empty the dishwasher. Also, she's very fit. She's very fit, so that does help. But it's just been marvelous. Can't tell you.
God, and how? Remind us how long she's been doing it now.
She's been here more than a year now. So she had been with us for about 8 months pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
And when the pandemic hit, and we stayed open as emergency childcare. So I didn't feel it was the safest place for her to be. So we had to say for her not to come. But once the summer came, we felt that things had moved forward, and she agreed to do all the necessary things that we were doing, which was clean clothing every day, washing your hair every day, all of that. And our daughter was marvellous. She made her hairdresser appointments, and she brought her so she wasn't on public transport because she just missed it so much. But now she's back on the bus.
What has been the impact on her, do you think? I mean, maybe her family have given you insight to, you know, has it helped her? Does it help her?
Yes, I mean, her daughter will say to me that before she came to the nursery, there would have been no way she could have got on a bus and went anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, what happens in the nursery, or what we notice now, is if she is a wee bit lost in her day, if things aren't the same, she goes to the toilet a lot. So we know that. So we can sort it
pick
for
up
her.
a sign.
But we did get staff training. When Heather came at first, I felt we were guessing too much about what she needed and how to deal with what she needed.
Well, I was going to say as well, you know, other, say, parents of kids in the nursery or staff, would there have been concerns at the beginning about, oh, hey, you know, not sure about this? You know, is there a kind of stigma attached with that?
No.
Oh, how
No,
wonderful. I'm so pleased to hear it.
No, it's a very positive experience, and the children go home and talk about it.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a good positive experience, I think, for everybody.
And I was going to ask you, what do you think she brings to the kids? You know, what does that?
She's just got, it's a knee to sit on and somebody to listen to you, because quite often at different points of the day we're putting coats on and wellies on and all these kind of things that she's got the time and she doesn't rush them. You know, I noticed that she will sit and listen to whatever stories they've got to tell her. It's absolutely amazing to see. It really is. And she, I mean, you can't really see, but we all have our names on our uniforms. So that's a big help. But we had that anyway. So she can see. So for staff, she's not worried about forgetting who we all are.
It sounds absolutely amazing. Now that's one individual and one nursery. Do you think that the lessons from what you've been doing could also be applied wherever folk were willing?
Well, it's funny because there was another lady I heard whose husband was in a similar situation, and I said, you know, you'd be very welcome to come to the nursery. And she said, oh, he's not at that stage yet, dear. Okay. So I don't think people understand it.
No, maybe they don't. No, so we need to explain this better.
What I'm doing is telling my story a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to influence other nurseries. So we all went and visited care homes, and we have a strong link with local care homes, but we just can't do that just now. Yes, we can phone and send pictures and FaceTime, but we can't, they don't want us to go, and we're not going to do that. So I'm trying to say this is a real big winning situation.
Well, we'll come back to that. We'll come back to that point. We've got a lot of people here saying thank you so much for sharing that. That was a really beautiful description of your work. I'm going to come back to you, but first I'd like to introduce, if I could, Wanda Mackay, Youth Development Officer with High Life Highland. We'll hear more about that, up on the Bonnie Black Isle, Fortrose,
in Fortrose,
And then Fraser Thompson, Assistant Youth Worker with the Cromarty Youth Cafe. A warm welcome to you both. I'm going to start with you, Wanda, and just ask you to describe the project you're working in now and how it came to be.
Okay, well, as you've mentioned, I'm up in the Black Isle, the Bonnie Black Isle, and I'm the Youth Development Officer for the area. At this minute in time, through COVID, based in the Fortrose Academy, and I mainly work with young people aged 11 to 25 years. However, in 2011, November 2011, we recognised there was a need in our community for older people to become digitally connected. So we set up a Getting to Know Your Techno class, where we brought older people from the community who wanted to sign up into the school and be taught how to do iPads and Kindles, mobile phones, cameras. And that project started in 2011 and still goes now. Throughout lockdown, and I can explain that a bit later, or Fraser can, we've had to do different things where we couldn't do face-to-face. But basically, looking back, what we've done over the years is we've got a captive audience where we've built relationships and friendships, and we have our trust in our older people. And from that, we were able to set up game sessions that happen in the school. We've got the Trikes project, we've got a cook well and a bake well. We've got a rowing club with 27% of our community, our youngest age 12, and our oldest rowers 80 years old. And many, many things that we do, which I could give more information on, but please question about.
Well, I'll tell you what, I want to ask you at this stage, just who's your employer?
So I'm employed by Highland.
Oh, okay, right. So it's a third sector.
Highland. So it's a sort of arm's length organisation from the council.
Oh, okay, cool. But so basically you work for the council, because you've been doing this for a long time. You've been doing this work for 25 years.
Yeah, I've been doing the work for about 25 years and volunteer over and above my work because it's just something that I'm passionate about doing. I mean, and as I said, we work with 11 to 25, although I'm often quoted saying I work from the cradle to the grave.
Don't we all? Let me go to Fraser before I come back to you, Wanda, if that's all right. Fraser, tell us a bit about what you do.
So, as Wanda said, I work with...
Need to mute me.
There's a bit of an echo. Somebody needs to... Hey, great. I think that's clear now. You're on mute, I think, Fraser. Try it on again. So let's see whether we can get it going.
Is that better?
That is so much better. Take it away.
Okay. So as Wanda said about Getting to Know Your Techno, I was involved with the starting up Getting to Know Your Techno with Wanda and some of the pupils. And quite a lot of the things we've done is supporting like one of the old folks clubs. We've taken young people along there. And during lockdown, there was the primary school created Christmas cards that went out to the older folks, and they also created ones for the local care home.
That's so beautiful.
It was, and the older people loved the fact that the primary school, because before COVID, the older people used to go into the primary school, the pupils used to sing to them and things like that. But right now, that obviously can't happen. So the older people weren't forgotten about. We did in the summer just past, we had an intergenerational Makaton lunch where older people and younger people were learned 20 Makaton signs, and then they sang. They just did a 15-second video of Bring Me Sunshine. Yeah. So a lot of the projects that we've been involved with they've grown.
Yeah. And would you like to do more? Can you see the capacity, if the stars were all properly aligned, would you like to do more?
Definitely. Because it's the older people and the younger people, when they come together, the friendships and the relationships that they build is phenomenal.
It's extraordinary why we don't do this everywhere. But I mean, do you see impact on, either end of the age scales or whatever it is there? Do you see young people responding well to what their interaction with older people, and then vice versa?
Definitely. And the young people take everything at the older people's pace. So it doesn't matter if, like, one of the ladies that comes to techno, she's actually got dementia, and she needs to be told, well, not told, she needs to be shown a few times how to do something, and then it clicks. But sometimes that could be 3 or 4 weeks that she comes back and says, can you remind me how to do that? And the young people, yep, no problem, let's go, we'll do this again. Patient
and caring. Yeah. Wow, if we could bottle what you've got on the Black Isle, that sounds amazing. I have to declare an interest here I'm a trustee of Age Scotland, and it's fantastic to hear about intergenerational work. Wanda, to come back to you, when I said, is there more you'd like to do? You said, you were nodding there. You're on mute.
Hi there. Penny, there'll always be more for us because there will always be different younger people. So for us, I mean, one of the things you talk about impact is often we have young people who, you know, maybe are not enjoying school life, or young people who have additional support needs themselves who want to come and work with us. And the buy-in for them may be that they see that they're helping us. But of course, the impact being that it helps themselves. I mean, and at this minute in time, I think we have around 130 young people signed up for Salter Award. It's probably a bit more than that, who in the last 12 months have done over 11,000 hours of volunteering. Now, they've all got recognised awards through Salter Awards, but some of our young people have went on to win really, you know, national awards as well as local recognised awards. But it's that whole thing about when they go up the street and they recognise the older people and that simple hello. We did a project, you know, I could list an A to Z project, and it was about taking that time to say hello, and we recorded them, and through lockdown, we sent them out. The Marketon singing signing that Fraser's talking about, when older people couldn't go to see each other, we did it outdoors. Every challenge and obstacle that's thrown in our way, we will come round it some way to keep everyone safe. And we did that lunch outdoor, and they absolutely loved it. And the fun and banter that we get, and the personalities from our older and younger people. And we talk about mental health. I mean, at one session, we had an older person tell us, which was really sad, that she had lost her son to suicide 16 years before. She shared that, and that is because the development of the trust and relationships with the older people and younger people, that each week they so look forward to our class, and they particularly ask, can I have little John, or can I have this person? And it's amazing.
Let me, if I can, bring Jackie back in. Let's because there's other stuff I'd like to explore a little bit, and I think it's around the kind of local nature of this, because it strikes me that what you all do is about your communities, the people you know and work with. You know, if, for instance, the government were to accept that intergenerational working is a great thing, and there was going to be a scheme rolled out across Scotland, and, you know, somebody else was going to deliver it, would it work? Jackie, let me ask you that first.
Absolutely. My husband and I opened this nursery 10 years ago, and what's happened in the last couple of years with intergenerational, I think, why are people's care homes not built nearer nurseries, for example?
The Dutch do that, don't they?
Yeah, there's no, you know, young people, that is fantastic what Wanda was saying, but what I find with like preschool children and elderly people is there's no barrier between them. Do you know what I mean? They just chat to each other, everything's cool. Heather gets a bit stressed about the way they bake cakes, I may add, but it's just, I think, you know, if you had a nursery and a care home and a shared garden.
So, but that's about the architecture of your communities, your towns, the kind of 30-minute neighborhood thing. Fraser, for you, how important is it that this is grassroots built stuff? You're responding to local need here.
So I think that it's definitely something that would work in other places. It's definitely, for us, it is grassrooted because it was the local need.
Mm. So I mean, it would be difficult to think then about some unit being set up to kind of like say, right, okay, we're going to take all this learning and this is how you've got to do it and blah, de blah. That would wonder, would that work?
Yeah, absolutely, it would work. Of course, when
you're on.
Sorry. Yeah, absolutely, it would work. Of course, it takes to build a relationship with certain people. So we can say to our older people, it's about doing Marketon, it's Cook Will, it's Bake Will. We're taking part in the elections, and they'll do it because we have that relationship. You know, we see our older people as our family. I mean, we call them the recycled teenagers. So we've got that fun and banter going on with them. But of course, it could be duplicated in other areas, but it takes a little bit of time. And Jackie, I quite agree with you about the nursery children. When we have our lunches that we have every 6 weeks, the nursery children come in and sing at it. So the teenagers are there. So we have all aspects from our community and every need, you know, so it's very diverse and very inclusive.
And Alison has put a note in chat saying co-located and shared sites are now being planned and built in Scotland. Do you want to come and tell us a bit more about that? Join the conversation as well.
Yep, we do. We've got the first intergenerational school, which is the Jedburgh Community Campus, which is based down in the Scottish borders. Unfortunately, because of COVID though, it has taken quite some time to be able to get the intergenerational working started. So that's a development. There is a co-located site in planning in I'm trying to say Midlothian and East Lothian somewhere. There's lots of different developments. The Crichton Trust in Dumfries are looking at intergenerational communities. We've got the New Haven, Heart of New Haven have just taken, it's a group that have just taken over a build, an old primary school, and are developing it into a community intergenerational hub. We've also got a police station in Renfrewshire that's been developed for the community for intergenerational working, and swimming pool in Knightswood in Glasgow that's been developed. So we are seeing more and more. And we also, that's why we started up the Intergenerational Housing Places and Spaces thematic network, Penny, so that we could actually bring people together to actually start looking at what goes into this and sharing the planning. And we also connect with Generations United, who do a lot of shared sites across America, so that we can share that learning with people here.
Thank you so much. That sounds really amazing. But you know, this isn't on the public radar, is it? I mean, those of Jackie, Wanda, Fraser, if you don't live in your communities, you don't know what you're missing, basically. So there's an issue there about how do we spread the word. I'll come back to that. But, you know, do you think this is properly on the government's radar when it comes to the National Care Service? Because we're talking some fairly fundamental stuff here, like social housing. We've got a lot of chat in Scotland about social housing. So how are we going to do that intergenerationally, for instance, and blend it like that? Do you think, Wanda, that this is on the government radar like it should be?
No, I think it certainly should be more of. We've definitely got a rapidly increasing, you know, older people in our community. We know by 2037, we'll have 45% older people on the Black Isle. And we want people to live here and die here happily, not to move, you know, and get in care homes, as I know from having a family member in a care home locally, is near to impossible on the Black Isle. That's now before we even get. So no, definitely, we need to further improve it and showcase and the outcomes of what we're doing and impact, definitely.
Yeah, great. And Jackie, would you agree with that? I mean, do you think the government really understands the potential here for projects like
No, I don't think they do, not at all. Even locally, when I've tried to speak to local ministers and talk about it, and yes, they're very, very keen to get a picture with Heather and put it in the local paper, but they're not promoting it at all. How do other people do what we're all doing? How do you take it a step further? We need their help, but
yeah,
it's not on the agenda. It's not front of their agenda. Put it like that.
I'm going to go to the more youthful one among us, Fraser, and throw that to you. How do you spread the word? You know, what do you think about spreading the word about this? Not necessarily to government, although that would be great. But you know how do you tell?
It's actually spreading the word is quite difficult, but at the same time, it's word. Our projects go by word of mouth, and like there's the local walking group for the old people attend, that if one of them finds out about it, they'll tell the other people. And there is some things that, like when we received our Dementia Friendly Community Award, it was in all the newspapers, so people knew that we were a dementia friendly community. But it depends on what kind of message you're trying to get out there and who you're trying to get your message to.
Yeah. As
to how it gets out there.
And
one of the older people that we used to work with, he's sadly no longer with us. One of the young people was playing pipes on social media every day, and someone showed him the video, and then it actually went worldwide. I think there was 100,000 views of him with this video watching another young person. It was phenomenal.
And that is just amazing. And in your experience, Fraser, are the young people who come at this cold, so they start at the school, they hear about this and the opportunity, do they all go for it? Or is there some that go, nah, not for me?
A lot of the young people that attend, that they want to help. They want to build the relationships with the older people. So it's not a case of you're going to this and you're going to, and they leave, because once they've built the relationships with the older people, then they tend to come back, they want to stick, and then when they leave school, and there's actually one of the young ones that we worked with, she left school, she went on to do nursing, and now one of the ladies that she became friendly with in the Getting to Know Your Techno project, she goes and visits her weekly, because if not, that person has got no one else close by.
That's so beautiful. And, you know, so potentially this is a kind of early scheme for, you know, do you want to work in care? You know, because we're going to need armies of people, aren't we? And Fraser, can I ask you one last question? I mean, you talked there about one of the older people no longer being here. How does the group support one another if you build close relationships with an older person and they do die?
It's the group are very close, and
Yeah.
Ray, the gentleman who died, he died during lockdown, so that we weren't together when that happened. But if we were together and one of the older people had died, then everyone in the group would support each other,
after each
and
other.
they would be given the time to talk if needed.
Yeah, really beautiful. Alison, you wanted to come in there. Sorry,
No, that's okay. I just to say a wee bit about the government. The government actually do support intergenerational work in Scotland through the Ageing Equalities team.
Cool.
Through Christina McKelvey, who is a great believer in intergenerational work. However, what I would say the difficulties with government is there is so many different portfolios, different directives within the government, that intergenerational work sits in so many.
Okay.
And being such a small organisation, it's really difficult.
Really
so
tough.
we need our membership. We've got over 3,600 members. We need people to be talking about this, spreading the word in the community.
But we also need to be encouraging in government, looking at issues across all portfolios, because it's education, it's everything else, it's the whole lot, the whole kit and caboodle. So how do you, they're going to have to get, because that comes up with lots of other areas of this. Let me ask you as well, because here we're thinking about what the National Care Service might have to do to boost this. Does it need more money, Alison?
Intergenerational work needs, yes, absolutely. We need specific funding. We need
ring fence.
Yes, absolutely. Because intergenerational projects have been squeezed into grouped work, into siloed work. So you get work for older people who are working with dementia, and then there's difficulties because you're connecting. If we were to ring fence intergenerational work, it would allow people to develop it long term. And Penny, it is so cost effective. Intergenerational work, it doesn't cost a lot of money and saves money.
Alison, we've got to be able to measure that. We've got to be able to prove that, haven't we, to the people that are going to be making the money decisions. And that's where the research bit comes in.
Very much so.
Yeah, well, look, I don't know whether Wanda, Fraser, Jackie, you know, do you think we need better research on this? Do you think we need to know more? We need to be, I mean, sadly, perhaps, we need to be able to prove impact, to have a hope of, you know, having any kind of prominence in whatever comes from now. Jackie, I'm going to come to you first.
Yeah, it's, I feel like even in my own situation, just going back to what Fraser was saying earlier on, my staff did have reservations when I brought this in the door, that Heather was going to come, and they were like, oh, you know, we've not got enough on our plate and things like that. How do we get the message across about what you get from it? So, you know, people are, you know, what these young people are doing, that's so fantastic. But all my staff now would all come to see Heather when she's in. They all come to say hello and make sure she's okay and know about her family and chat. It's just getting that message across. Even when I speak to other nurseries trying to promote it, I can see the reservations about doing something. And
I'm going to come to Alison on that, because I think you raised that in your talk. But before we go on that one, thank you so much, Jackie, because I think that's a key message for the NCS. And Wanda and Fraser, what would you like to see done in any new care service we might have to help you?
Well, I think for us is kind of sharing our practice, which I mean, is kind of what we tried to do at the Scottish Learning Festival to other schools, because I mean, we started off small in school where we had people that came from the base, but in actual fact now we really have a whole school approach, and that's our staff in every department. So the English department, we're doing letters, and the art departments, we're making robins, and the cooking department, we're doing cakes, and every part of the school contributed to our projects. And then we opened it up to the community. So, I mean, Fraser spoke about one of our participants having dementia. Every year we do Dementia Friends. We train up new young people. We train up all the older people in the class. We train up all the people in our community. We take it to the rowing club. So there's a knock-on effect. And if we could do that in every community and roll that out, that in itself.
All right, I want you in government. You should be leading this. Fraser, what about you? What would your ask be?
It's exactly the same as what Wanda was saying. It's about showcasing the work and raising the profile of all of the work that we do.
Yeah, beautiful.
And I agree with what Lynn is saying about Wanda for the First Minister.
Yeah. I'll come back to you, Alison, because I wanted to ask one last question of wonderful 3 examples of practice on the ground. The pandemic clearly was a right bomb in the works, for want of a better phrase, right? But what would you keep? Is there anything that you learned during the pandemic that you would keep in place? I mean, that might be trickier for Jackie because obviously things had to shut, etc. But is there any learning from the pandemic that informs what you're going to do from now? Jackie?
Yeah, I think what it did for us was we all worried a lot about Heather and how she would regress.
Yeah.
But in fact, she didn't. I don't think she stuck to the 1 hour of exercise a day, to be honest with you. But she did, I thought she would really miss the company and things like that, but she was happy with the phone chat.
Yeah.
She was quite, and instead of me phoning her every week, all the staff took a turn, the kids spoke to her on the phone and things like that. But no, it was difficult for us because the whole thing about it is having Heather in the building, really.
Yeah.
So I probably wouldn't keep
great.
anything.
Must be great to have her back, and thank you, Jackie.
Oh, it is.
And Fraser, for you next, is there anything about the pandemic learning that you should keep, like the IT skills thing intergenerationally, like?
So what we've learned from the lockdown and pandemic and not being face to face is that the older people, that's why we've done we've given out things to the older people, so then they're still getting that face to face interaction. Yes, it's not every week, but maybe once a month or at Christmas time, and that, especially when Christmas time is a lonely time of the year, that older people, that they got their Christmas cards, they got lockdown letters, they got their Christmas robins, and then at Easter, we were given, from the Highlands Senior Citizens Network, we were given Robbie Burns dialect books, and from Kermit Youth Cafe as well, we gave them, put an Easter egg in that bag for them to go out, that the young people delivered. So it's all about keeping the relationships, whether it's online, it's face to face. You could take the techno part out and have a drop-in cafe, and the older people would attend because it's the conversations that they want. They want someone to talk to.
Yeah. And isolation is such a huge issue. Thank you so much. And Wanda, for you, what would you keep?
So, I mean, as Fraser said there, we had lots of exciting things. And for us, Jackie, probably setting up Facebook accounts before the pandemic and throughout it made that really useful to keep us connected. But I mean, throughout lockdown, our young people excelled. They had to get used to blended learning, get online. We got them into a virtual classroom. We got our older people in there. Younger people gritted the streets to keep our older people safe. They delivered newspapers. We put home tea loaves, marmalade in January, jam in different months. So we did anything we could. So, I mean, yes, we had to think in different ways, but actually for us, there were some positives, because through the lockdown, that was the first time I'd ever heard young people tell me they were lonely and they were isolated and they were anxious. And we got them to come into our youth work classroom by doing the type of work that we did, and that kept them and older people connected. So there were lots of positives for us, because we realised everyone's mental health is impacted with lockdown. So there were positives for us.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much, all three of you, for sharing. You know, for me, this absolutely brings it alive to hear those stories. That's really brilliant. Alison, to come back to you, can you expand a bit on the general staff training thing? You touched on it when you talked before, and Jackie's just raised it there.
Yeah, I would agree with Jackie. Anxiety and worry and the feeling of being overwhelmed with an already heavy workload is a huge barrier to people connecting and to do this, because to do intergenerational work, you have to form those partnerships, you have to get to know people, you have to do some, I believe you have to do some training, you have to invest in it. And I think for us, what we need to do is we need to give staff the time to develop their understanding and knowledge about it. I also think, going back to the pandemic, I think we're very practitioner-led in this country quite often, and I think GWT have been quite practitioner-led, training practitioners. And I think what we've seen through COVID is individuals that are coming together in the communities. I think we need to promote that story to them, get them involved. But I do think giving people time, if they don't understand what it is, let them go and visit a project. Let them go and let them go onto YouTube and see videos, but to actually experience the projects will really give them that overwhelming feeling of, I need to do this.
So one thing that a National Care Service could do, or it could come off it in some direction, would be to promote this concept in communities around Scotland. Because, you know, can people, as volunteers, you know, could I just sort of say, right, okay, I'm going to start something to get intergenerational work together here in sunny North Kelvin side?
Absolutely. There's projects in America, we're hoping to do this soon. There's projects in America that train older and younger people, and they go out and they bring those projects alive. Penny, just one last thing. I do think for Scotland, it needs to be in all levels. So we need the grassroots, we need these people to do it. We also need help with the local government, with our local authorities. They're the most difficult. There's 32 in Scotland, and they're so hard to be able to feed that in, all these stories into all the local authorities.
That's a really important point for the National Care Service, because a key area of contention there is the role of local government in any new care service. So I think that's a loud message. We've only got 8 minutes to go. I'd love to dig into that, but that sounds like another OWR somewhere down the line. But I'd like to bring in Sheena Arthur from GCVS to join our discussion as we bring, you know, this fascinating chat to a close. Hi, Sheena. What are you making of what you're hearing?
Oh, I'm just loving it, Penny. Thank you so much for the discussion. It's so invigorating. And at a time when we're hearing all the difficulties and everyone's overwhelmed and their workload's crazy, this is just so lovely to hear.
It's about hope.
The warmth is oozing through the screens. It's just so lovely. And I think for me, so my role is working with the Health and Social Care Partnership in Glasgow and the third sector. And I can really see there's some key messages for me about the relationship building, I think it was Fraser said the relationships are phenomenal that you're seeing being built, and the potential of this, and the really building a community on the whole life journey is really important. And I think that can be a really positive message about the need to do this. You know, like you said, building a workforce, creating a society that's more accepting and inclusive of one another, giving people purpose and connectivity. So I think there's some really powerful messages in this, as well as being really lovely to hear. And I think that's the bit for me in my job that I will go back and share. And I would say that the partnership in Glasgow are interested in intergenerational working, and some projects have been doing it for a while and some are just thinking about it. So I'd really like to explore a bit more about the training and how can we bottle some of that enthusiasm that we're seeing from Wanda and Fraser and Jackie and Alison. It's just great to hear and how we can do quite small things that can then grow.
And Alison, you've put up a chat. Oh no, but intergenerational volunteering is vitally important too, which could be encouraged. I suppose there's a danger, if I were putting on my journalist hat here, that this could be seen as cheap labor. How do you protect against that?
I think it's, I can see that, but I think it's so much more. Volunteers have the time to sit and talk and be with people. And I think intergenerational volunteering, although it's recognised, it's not really recognised well enough. Yeah. During COVID, we had older people who were desperate to volunteer and they weren't able to volunteer even digitally because of their age and because everybody else on the other side of the partnership were all too overwhelmed with what was happening. Yeah. But if you think of care homes, think of the amount of care homes that don't have active volunteering. If there was intergenerational volunteers there, it could be student nurses, student teachers, building the empathy. Oh, it's endless, Pennie.
And there's also really good evidence about volunteering and the health benefits and impacts on both volunteer and person in receipt of volunteering, whatever the right phrase is for that. Listen, we've got 4 minutes to go, but Kate Samuels has put up a note saying, if I could urge anyone interested in this to please respond to the NCS consultation to call for more of this. Any stories would be particularly welcome, because actually, don't know about you, but it's the stories that bring this alive for me. If I see numbered paragraphs and a load of jargon, it's easy to switch off. But when you hear about Heather and when you hear about the involvement there, it's just fantastic. I'd like to ask, actually, because everybody's still online, in our last couple of minutes, Wanda and Fraser and Jackie first, are you optimistic that we are at a point in time where we could just grasp this thing in Scotland and make this happen? Or are you pessimistic? Where do you stand, Wanda?
For me, I can only ever be optimistic. You've got to see your way to the future, and there'll be some ways of getting there. Of course, there'll be challenges, but as we say with the hurdles, we'll go around them, we'll go through them, but we just have to be optimistic, definitely.
Okay, great, thank you. And Fraser, do you think we can get this?
I'm the same, that we need to be optimistic for going forward. And as Wanda said, regardless of the hurdles, we'll find a way around them, over them, under them. We will get there.
And Jackie, briefly, what about you? Up for it or?
Oh, definitely. Absolutely. It has brought so much to my nursery and to my staff and the children. So whatever I can do to promote this, whoever I can talk to, I take every opportunity, and on we go.
Would you do it again? Would you do it again?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Constantly
Alison.
looking for somebody.
Alison.
Yeah, absolutely. Positive, getting good vibes. I just think people need to be bold. We need to be brave, creative, and we just need to, as Wanda and Fraser and Jack has just said, let's just get on with it. Let's just take that red tape, rip it up, move on, address it, but move on. Yeah. And
can we get on with it? Even if it doesn't get extra funding and all the resources it needs.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. It might not grow as fast as we want it to be, might not, develop in the ways that we want it to be, but what's already happening in Scotland is just fantastic.
Thank you so much. I'm going to give the closing words to Sheena. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Penny. I've just put in the chat. Thank you so much for, it's inspiring, it's invigorating, and yeah, please get in touch. You know, for a future event, it feels like there's lots that we can explore. And Alison, I'll be in touch too. I think we're connected anyway through the HSCP work, but just great to see what we can do.
And we're dead on 3 o'clock, but thank you so much to everyone who's taken part in this discussion from afar for contributing to it. Really appreciated. Have a great afternoon.